In 2001, a real-world exercise tested the emergency response to a bioterror attack on the continental United States. The operation was called Dark Winter. Within just a few days, the simulation spiraled out of control. The operation predicted a rapid breakdown in essential institutions, civil disorder, and massive civilian casualties. Dark Winter has revealed how vulnerable we've become. Our lifestyle, our security, our safety depends on a delicate and unstable economy. We've created a system so complicated that we no longer understand how to control it. Oil, power, shipping, transport. We live in a complex world. And the more complex it gets, the more fragile it becomes. The system is built on a global supply chain that gets things where they're needed, just in time. We've created a house of cards. Remove just one, and everything falls apart.
From this point, the breakdown will happen fast.
Day 1, hospitals will reach capacity. Panic will strike. Day 2, quarantine zones will be established. Resources will be rationed. Transport will go into lockdown. Day 3, international trade will stop. The oil will dry up. The stock market will collapse. Day 4, the power will fail. The shelves will be empty. The taps will run dry. And once hunger and despair take hold, people will do anything for survival. By day 5, everyone will be a potential threat. Our complex world is primed for breakdown.
And once the chaos strikes,
there won't be resources to save us all.
The only question left is, what will it take to save what remains?
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
All right, so that's as far as I want to get, or that's as far as I want to go with this whole COVID-19 thing, because I have a lot more stuff to talk about, especially about the food. All right, so let's get into it, because I believe this is the most important part of all of this, especially from the prospect of the reset, but also the dark winter. As you heard on the introduction video, right? I played that video for you. Yes, it's about a video game, but when you really pay attention to what they're saying and you compare it to all the things that's going on here in the United States, it's very similar and it's pretty close together. You know, did they hit it on the head by accident? Probably. You know, we don't know. Maybe it was predictive programming. The case, whatever the case, what we're talking about is that one of the things that they're going to use as a tool for you to go into the Great Reset is going to be food. All right. And through the dark winter, with this whole system falling apart, is that we're going to see food shortages, as you heard in the video. All right. People are going to be desperate, which they are right now. They're going to be places where it's going to lock down. The hospitals are going to be overrun. You know, you heard the video. The point is that they are going to use it. They are going to use the food as a way to control people, because we are seeing the desperation. Let me remind you that if it wasn't for all these restrictions and all these lockdowns on the businesses, such as the restaurants, the gyms, and all these other places they want to lock down, the United States would be in a better shape. People would not have lost their jobs. All right, as I've shared with you in previous podcasts, you know, for months now. The reason people lost their jobs is because the businesses could not operate properly with the people that they had. All right, they had to cut hours, they had to stagger people, and at the end of the day, they had to pretty much close the business because people weren't coming in, because they were not allowed to have people inside. So that is what's going on. All right, so I have a video for you, or yeah, it's from CBSLocal.com, and it's gonna show you how many people came through the Texas Food Bank. Here's that video.
Mixed emotions today at Dallas's biggest food giveaway since the pandemic began. Quite frankly, probably one of the biggest ever. While many families are happy that they will have a Thanksgiving meal, the size of the crowds proves just how devastating this pandemic continues to be. From the ground, you could see cars lined up everywhere at Fair Park. When you take a wider view from the air, the length of the line was as far as the eye could see, backed up onto the freeway. But for those in the line, they saw something else.
I see see blessings coming to us because we all struggling, and I appreciate North Texas helping us out. There we go. There we go. All right. Load it up.
Samantha Woods was one of the estimated 25,000 people who benefited from the giveaway.
It really is amazing, and I thank God that I was able to get in the line this morning. Plenty of room.
Each of them thankful, grateful, and very candid about how tough this past year has been.
I haven't been working since December.
March,
Can't find a job. They cut off my unemployment. It's a big deal. It's a real big deal.
So this is a big blessing for us to be able to get this.
The food drive brought out several organizations, including the North Texas Food Bank, to distribute more than 500,000 pounds of food.
It was a whole lot of people that pitched in on this. Like I said, me partnering up with the North Texas Food Bank and the Tarrant County Food Bank, Pastor Brown bringing in those volunteers in the Baptist Ministers Union.
For those who showed up, there was really just one thing required of them.
We have patience. We got patience.
The ability to wait a bit, as so many others found themselves with the same need. It's a grim reminder of how much COVID has ripped people's livelihoods, but it's also proof that together as humans, we can get through this.
Thank you, North Texas. Happy holidays.
With a little kindness.
They gave away 7,000 turkeys and around 600,000 pounds of food to 25,000 people in Texas. As I mentioned earlier, if these people would have become preppers 5 years ago, how much of a better shape would they have been? I would say a lot better, right? If they would have seen food shortages coming, one day, because as I mentioned in the previous podcast, in the prepper community, we never had a timeline. It was always a future event that we were waiting for. But now we have timelines. Things are happening now. In Texas alone, 25,000 people went to get over 600,000 pounds of food. All right, and they went and got it for free. And yes, people need it, right? But did you notice how many of those cars were really nice cars? I mean, some of those cars were really nice, and that just really goes to show that all of this is hidden in every ladder of the economy. All right, well, pretty much from the middle class down. The point is that they are taking advantage of what's going on, as I mentioned a minute ago. But the food is going to be the major tool that they're going to help people drive them into the Great Reset using the dark winter, because transportation is one of the things that gets shut down. And what happens when truckers don't run? A lot of things happen, all right? And especially since they have announced this past week, the truckers said that for the Thanksgiving weekend, they don't want to work. All right, they're going into a strike because of what Biden wants to do with fracking. All right, so I have several thoughts about that. And I understand that they have a legitimate reason to do it, and they have the right to protest, right? But I do want to mention to the truckers that Biden has not been declared winner. Now, at least not legally yet. Just because the mainstream media did it doesn't mean that he is. But let's say that he did become the president. Then if he did do that, then you should wait until that happens. All right, this is way premature, especially during the holiday season. Are they trying to use that as an excuse to not work and just be home for the holidays? I don't know. But the point is that if truckers just stop going to work, right? They don't deliver the groceries. They don't deliver all the stuff. As you saw in the video, the big old line of people, 25,000 people waiting for the groceries to be put in their trunk, all that was delivered by an 18-wheeler. So eventually, let's say that the person who delivered, or the company who delivered the food to the food bank, or the workers themselves, even if they own the 18-wheeler rigs, they went on strike as well, and they say, you know what, I'm not moving anything. And they couldn't find someone to come and move the trucks. How would the people be affected by all of this? All right, I want to read you the headline because I found this at theorganicprepper.com. And it says, a trucker strike in November could be another nail in the supply chain coffin. Rumor has it that a large number of independent truckers are planning multiple strikes in November, during which they'll stop transporting, well, everything. Considering that the supply chain is already in precariously bad shape, imagine the impact if transportation also came to a halt. While there are a few official reports, the buzz on Twitter is that truckers are angry about the outcome of the election and that they intend to show the country the power they will over our well-being. Some of the videos mention November 29th as the day it all happens. We will not participate in the leftist Harris-Biden Green New Deal. We do not support the banning of fracking. The United States of America operates on capitalistic economy, and oil is the fuel she survives on. With this being said, we will stop all tires for 24 hours on Veterans Day 11/11/20. If this is not effective and our leaders do not respect that blue-collar truck drivers are having to face domestic terrorism, primarily in Democratic-run cities all over the United States, and that we do not support the banning of fracking in any way, then we will have our second stop of tires for 4 full days, 11/26/20 through 11/29/20. And that's pretty much the Thanksgiving weekend. So again, are they trying to have a weekend holiday? Maybe. But how devastating is this going to be for the entire country? Very devastating. Now, this type of acts, okay, that is just going to give more reason to the World Economic Forum, to the people behind the Great Reset, to say, see, we need electric vehicles that are autonomous, that are going to transport our goods and services through other warehouses without the need of a human. This is exactly what all of this is going to, because, you know, we know that Tesla has come out with the 18-wheeler rigs, and they have tested them in the United States. You know, they have actually driven in American roads, if I'm not mistaken, from 2018 and all the way to 2020, if I'm not mistaken. The point is that it has been happening. They're perfecting that technology because technological advances do not take very long. And for full autonomous 18-wheelers to be driving around, it's not far-fetched, all right? And it's not very far off. And remember, the plans for the World Economic Forum for the Great Reset is from here within the next 10, 20, and 30 years, all three of them having different benchmarks that they want to achieve in that time span. All right, right now, the truck drivers, they may have a big impact, not just in our economy and our daily lives, but eventually they're going to be obsolete to the fact that the globalists, the government, and the companies, quite frankly, such as, you know, Amazon and others, Walmart, they're going to move to autonomous drivers. So what is it going to be like in those days when they have full control of that? And the reason that I bring this is not because I have an issue with the truck drivers stopping for 4 days, even though it would be devastating for the United States. What I'm saying is that now, when the whole infrastructure of transportation switches from being human-driven to autonomous-driven, they're going to have control over us even more than they already have. And that's going to be one of their bigger tools in order for them to be able to actually push us into the Great Reset, push us into that two system that I shared with you earlier. One, you're in the system, everything's for free, or you're off of the system and you're poor and you can barely make it. All right. Not only they're going to make your life a living hell, you know, but it's going to be very difficult for you to be out of the system. And that's pretty much what they want to do. All right. So here on the next video, I want you to understand what would be the repercussions to go 5 days without a truck. And this actually is a film, but this kind of like a clip of the films that pretty much show the 5 different days or how things will go down in 5 days. But again, what I want you to understand is that now that I'm having some type of problem that the truck drivers want to stop, is that I want you to realize how all of this is within the Great Reset. They're gonna take control of the truck driving industry. They're gonna make it autonomous, and they're gonna have even greater impact on our life. Here's that video.
I think that most people do not sort of realize that every tangible object, every piece of food they consume was most likely in a truck before it got to them.
The growth in population in this country and the need for the movement of goods and services is literally going to overwhelm the infrastructure as we know it today.
One component of the network shuts down and it impacts the rest of the network. It's that fragile. I mean, we're on that close of a sliver of the transportation system working as people want it to work.
particularly as we've moved to a world of Amazon Prime and deliveries as opposed to making our own personal trips, we don't think about the truck traffic that causes.
Basically, to the general public, we are invisible unless something goes wrong.
We're now investing a smaller percentage of our gross domestic product in transportation infrastructure than many third world countries.
We're on a path that is not a sustainable path on how we can move all this freight and have this quality of life that we have as Americans. You can't sit idly by and just say, well, it'll all work out, because it won't.
All right, so that video was really important because, it was short and sweet, and it got to the point and showed you the 5 different days and how things can pretty much crumble in those 5 days. Will it follow that timeline? It will have to wait and see. Hopefully we never see that day, because it would be a pretty nerve-wracking week. Those 5 days will be a pretty nerve-wracking. But the point is that we have to understand that if we see that as preppers, as the general public, is we see that as a threat, okay? How would the powers that be, people in control, when they come out and say that never let a good crisis go to waste, how do you think they look at the trucking industry if there's something major was to happen to it? They would see that as an opportunity, because they would not let the crisis go to waste, okay? So that would be one of the things. That would be what, in my opinion, as preppers, we would have to protect that infrastructure and, back the truck drivers, make them understand how important they are, which I know they know. But what I'm saying is that we should not let this industry become autonomous, because once they have the full control of it, then we're going to be at whoever is controlling, we're going to be at their will, at their whim, whatever it's called. The point is that we must get ready. We must be prepared for all of this. So all of that brings me to this next clip that I have for you, because it just proves my point even more. And this comes from Klaus Schwab himself, straight out of his mouth. You're gonna hear it, and he's talking about cyber attacks. But pay attention to the industries he's saying that would be affected from a cyber attack. Here's that video.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
All right, so you heard it straight out of the mouth of the person who pretty much invented the World Economic Forum. But do you listen to the 3 things that he said that would stop if there was a very big cyber attack? The first one, he said power supply. I mean, of course, the power goes out. The next one, transportation. That's talking about the truck drivers, not talking about you going to work. Because, of course, that's going to affect you too, going to work, because there would be no stoplights and stuff like that. But what they're talking about when they say transportation, they're talking about the 18-wheelers, talking about the 18-wheeler rigs, taking all that product to the warehouses and, and then doing the entire logistics, because All those central hubs, they run on power, they run on electricity, they run on computers. That's why it has been told for a very long time that the Achilles heel of the United States is the entire electricity system that we have, the grid. Because once they take that away, over 90% of the country perishes within 24 months. You know, and that's just blowing an EMP, doing a cyber attack, okay, and not doing anything else. No other attack, you know, no other virus, nothing. That would just be EMP, leave them alone. They're going to kill themselves anyways. That's how it would go down. So that's why it's very important for us to be prepared for all of this. Because if we don't prepare, we're going to suffer the consequence for not preparing. But not only that, we have to have a foundation on preparedness, which is what I teach here, all right? That is why I want to change this industry. I want to change this community of preppers, because it doesn't matter who you listen to. It's always an opinion of things. And I don't want it to become an opinion. I don't want it to be, depends who you ask, you know? I want to get that phrase out of people's mouths, especially preppers. The phrase, it depends who you ask, should not be something that we use, because it needs to be set on stone, have a foundation where we say, this is why you need to have this. This is the reason why. All right. For example, I'm going to give you a quick example. Food. Why do we say that you need at least 2 years worth of food? All right. For some people, that's a ridiculous amount of food. All right. Some people call it hoarding, which is going to be the next topic. Some people call it hoarding, but they don't understand why you need 2 years worth of food. Because when we're talking about a real crap and the fancy scenario, such as this that Class Schwab was talking about, that I'm talking about with the truck drivers, that we're talking about the whole freaking reset, is that if something was to happen today and you already have 2 years worth of food in your pantry, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to try to establish your garden for your food, your medicine. You're going to have your animals going around, all that, so you can resupply yourself, so you can become self-sustained. What the food store is going to do, what its task is for it to be a safety net in case the entire crop that you put down, or that you sowed, it's just, it's destroyed. You have crop failure for that summer, that winter, whatever it is. That way you don't starve to death. You have a backup plan. That's the reason you need at least 2 years. Can you go on it incrementally? Yes, you can. There's some people, and this is going to be part of the one video I'm going to do about preparing for everything, all right? There's people who have a bunch of money. They can spend $10,000 and it won't even tickle their pocket, right? It won't even tickle their wallet. There's people like me who are saying spend $10,000, just like that. Not possible, because I don't even have $1,000 in the bank, So there's different ways to go about it. If you have the money, you can get it done quick. It can take you hours and you can get it done, and you're going to be set for the next 2 years in all the other preps as well. For people like me who have been incrementally preparing for a long time, it's baby steps that you take. All right? It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of understanding that what the dates on certain things are. That way you can go ahead and buy them. You can buy certain things that are going to last you 25 years if you store them properly. There's other things that are going to last you 5 to 6 years if you store them properly. So there's steps that you learn and things that you're going to do, which is going to be something that I'm going to go into great detail at the end of all this information. So the way that I'm doing the podcast is that first we're talking about what we talked about in the previous podcast, the financial system. Now we're talking about COVID and the food supply, and then the next podcast is going to be the rest of it, which includes education, government, and other sectors, agriculture. And then the very, very last one from all this series is going to be how to prepare for all of it. Because I don't want you to get this information, then forget about the preparedness part. I want it all to be focused in one video, which I'm going to go into great detail when that day comes. So please share this information with your friends and family. Again, I want to say, what sets apart this podcast is that not only am I giving you the information that is going on in the world in real time, I'm telling you what to do about it, how to prepare for it, exactly what to do. There's people that ask me all the time what to do, and I give free advice. And that is setting us up as a community, so we know exactly what to do. If anybody asks us, we have a foundation on how to do it, why to do it. All right. I want it to be there is a hard science, is not guessing. And then there's other shows that just talk about the issue, they complain about the issue, and then they tell you who's doing something about it or who's not doing anything about it, and then they go home. You know, there's no do this so you can be better, you know, prepare or better position when this goes down. But that is what I'm doing. So please help us reach other people by sharing this in all your social media, by giving a like to the videos, because that puts us in the front of the line when people look for these kind of subjects. All right, put a like, leave a comment. Any questions that you have, I will answer them. All right, and also subscribe to the channel, because then that will help us to try to get advertisers that is going to give us, you know, some advertisement money that is going to help us invest it into reaching more people all throughout the social medias. That way we can have more people knowledgeable on preparedness, and they will know exactly what to do because of the next thing that I have for you. All right, the next section that I want to move into is how people are reacting, or, you know, not reacting, how people think about preparedness. Okay, so as I mentioned in the past, in previous podcasts, if you've been here a while, you understand what I'm saying. I've made videos about how people are asking questions on Reddit and how people, you know, understand preparedness, and you can understand what they're saying just by the way they ask the question. So what I want to really focus on this time is just this one post that I found. Somebody asked the question, but really what we need to focus on is the answers. All right, so here's from Reddit. What do you consider hoarding? You know how we like to have enough preps to maintain our sensibilities and not have to go out and buy stuff in a pandemic? When does someone cross the line prepping and it's called hoarding? And yes, that is a good question, but we have to understand that this has to be organization. All right, that's when I say that when you prepare and if you focus on just one thing, all right, and you forget about everything else, then you're not preparing properly. Because there's people, you know, we have seen the shows, we have seen the Doomsday Preppers, we have seen other shows or other people talk about it. They only focus on firearms. You know, they have all the firearms in the world and enough ammo to pretty much, you know, have their own little army that will fight for months and months at a time. And then there's people who have a bunch of food. You know, they have 20 years worth of food for 10 people or whatever, but they forget about everything else. So that's how this person asking the question. Now listen to the answers. Having more than you can actually be able to use, buying a ton of something when it's scarce and people need it, and forcing them to do without. All right, so that was the first, and well, one of the answers, not exactly in order, but that was one of the answers. What I need to say, or what I need to reply about this one answer, is that if people were already prepared, like those 25,000 people in Texas, if they were already preppers, they wouldn't have to go without. Okay, because if you go out and you have enough money and you buy everything that you're gonna need, that is not selfish. You're just preparing for the people that you love. Okay, if your neighbor did not prepare, it's on them, right? That's exactly what everybody always thinks. Now, I do believe, all right, this is the belief of Men and Survival, you know, me as the leader, that I want to project onto you, is that we do need to share when at all possible. I'm not saying go tell the entire world that you have enough preps, but there are going to be organizations like the food bank, like churches, others who are going to help people. What you can do is go drop off some stuff, and that's how you help people through the church, through the food bank, or whatever the case may be. All right, the next one says, also, when it affects your day-to-day life, like you can't use your bedroom because your preps have taken up all the available space, or you have so much you don't even know what you have anymore. Again, that's about organizing. You have to have enough space. So let's say that you are cramped up in an apartment complex, okay? And if you're still young enough to do this, then you need to really transition from living in an apartment to having your own home that's big enough for you to support all your preps, to have enough space for you to either put a storage shed, you know, out in your backyard, or do a root cellar that's going to give you space to store your stuff. All right. Or what you can do, if you cannot get out of the apartment, is to have it more organized, or you can get a storage unit. That's one of the ways that you can do it. Now, again, it depends on your budget, but you can look for ways to be more organized. Or you can actually have preps distributed in between your alliance, because again, they're the people who's going to help you. And again, you have to make sure that your alliance is a strong alliance who's going to help each other, and you don't have to worry about you storing some of your preps in their house, you know, because the plan is that they're going to come with you or you're going to go to their house, whatever the case may be. All right, the next one is also to add to this mindset, buying things that you don't normally cook with as preps. I use my preps weekly and keep them topped off. It's more of a deep pantry than I could entirely live off for 2 to 3 months if I lost a job or something disastrous happened. The next one, timing is important, and prepper buy slowly over time before the panic. They actually help the supply chain because grocery store eggs sees a 5% increase in tuna sales and restock accordingly. A hoarder goes out at night before the lockdown and doesn't think of others' needs. Buys the last 5 of an item instead of getting just one. And again, people need to understand that they do have to take care of themselves by becoming preppers before something major happens. You don't wait for the night before the lockdown and then you go out and buy everything you can. All right? Okay, you have the money, do it. You know, it's a free market. You can do whatever the heck you want. This is America. But ideally, you want to have everything you need before anything happens, so you don't find yourself going to the store trying to find whatever other people left over for you. This was a big issue when the pandemic first started and people started panic buying. You know, the memes and the stories came out about old people not being able to get their supplies because, you know, everybody else was buying everything that they could. On those stories was a little bit of drama into it and a little bit of truth, right? The truth part is that there was a lot of people suddenly realizing they needed food in their home, right? More than they usually get or more than they usually have, and they went and got it, right? There was other people who did not care about the pandemic. They didn't believe it was real. Therefore, they didn't go out and buy anything. And once they really did need it to resupply their normal groceries of the week, once they went, they didn't have anything. Okay, so again, I call that one half BS, half truth. I consider hoarding to be having more than you can use before an item expires, obtaining such large quantities that it causes others to go without. You know, again, that mentality, purchasing more than you can safely store, i.e., TP stuck to the ceiling is a fire hazard. I struggle with this too. Back in February, I was stockpiling big time and went big on toilet paper. Before we knew TP shortages was going to be a thing, I felt really bad sitting on my hoard of toilet paper while others didn't have any. Sad face. Okay, so again, a lot as I'm seeing it, and I'm pretty sure you've seen it too, people are pretty much having what you would call survivor's remorse. And that was a thing that came out when 9/11 happened. You know, some people who did not die in the Twin Towers, they felt guilty for surviving because their friends, their family, whatever it was, survived. And most of that happened with the firefighters who did survive the Twin Towers. All right, so what they're having is pretty much prepper guilty, or survivor guilt. Well, anyways, they're having survival guilt. And that is really, I would say it would be dangerous in the sense that they would start telling people what they have to, you know, they start talking to other people saying, here, I hoarded too much, here you go. When in reality, you need preps that is going to go a long time. You know, there's people who do categorize preppers between being a sensible prepper to being not enough of a prepper and to be a crazy prepper. But really, who determines that, all right? And it all depends on how you organize it. That's why we have to have a foundation in preparedness. Because if we all had that scientific, you know, foundation into preparedness, then it didn't really matter who asked or who started preparing. They would all follow the same line. They would all follow the same examples and the same everything. For example, when you go to school, they teach you to add. You're going to know that every time 2 + 2 is always going to be 4. That's what I'm talking about having a foundation in preparedness. All right, so I want to move on real quick because this video has gone on very long. My camera says 1 hour and 9 minutes, and this is even before editing all these videos. So well, I guess we'll see. If the video becomes too long, I will have to cut it into 2 pieces. So maybe there's going to be a 2.0 of this part. But anyways, I was going to go into detail on how the World Economic Forum, they want to start growing lab meat or lab grown meat. And pretty much what they're doing is they're getting the proteins out of the plants and everything. They're going to print it into something that looks like a steak so you can eat the steak. All right, and for me, that pretty much sounds like whoever's in charge in the World Economic Forum for food is a really big vegan. That's just what it sounds to me. All right, and they're talking about, and they're saying that people, you know, they say that they want meat because they need the protein. And now the scientists are saying, well, here's the protein that you're asking for. Just don't eat meat anymore because, you know, the cows take a lot of space and, you know, they can be devastating for the environment, yada, yada, yada. And that's the reason they're starting to grow this meat, and they want people to start eating it. You know, there's restaurants such as KFC. I remember reading about them wanting to go completely lab-grown meat by, I think it was 2032, or also, not two, but, you know, 2030 also. So I guess we'll see how that turns out, but I'm not going to eat KFC if they ever go to that. You know, I don't eat it as it is anyways, but the point is that there's going to be people who are not going to want to eat that stuff, and it's just going to lose revenue, right? All these crazy ideas, they're going to hurt their pocketbook, but if they don't care, then I guess they're going to go as long as we allow them to go. Now, I want to finish this podcast with this very important article that Mike Adams wrote in naturalnews.com. All right, and the headline says, Vax the Blacks. Joe Biden COVID-19 task force member recommends holding food stamps and rent assistance from those who refuse coronavirus vaccines. If you vote for a tyrant, you get tyranny. This is what millions of Joe Biden supporters are about to discover if their candidate manages to steal the election and seize control of the White House. A prominent member of Joe Biden's COVID-19 task force, a CIA-linked operative named Luciana Borio, says that people who refuse to be vaccinated should be deprived of food stamps and rent assistance. In other words, obey or starve. This is all contained in the report linked to this story, by the way. This on top of another Biden task force member now calling for a 4 to 6 week national lockdown for all Americans. A kind of national economic suicide to finish off whatever small businesses might have survived the COVID-19 nightmare so far. The document recommends that vaccine mandates get bundled with other social services such as food stamps, WIC program, rent assistance, and health care services. The report explains local and state public health agencies should explore collaboration with interagency and non-governmental partners to bundle vaccination with other safety net services. All right, so that is the danger. That is the danger of all of this, because once they have you by the horns, you're going to have to obey what they say. All right, so they're going to control your money. If they do end up with cryptocurrency, whether it's issued by the Fed or whoever it is that they want to, you know, they're going to issue it, there's going to be a global cryptocurrency. You know, it doesn't matter where you go around the world, they're going to accept the exact same cryptocurrency you have instead of having a euro, a dollar, a peso, you know, everything else. It's going to be one global one. You know, that's the goal. They're going to control your finances. Then they're controlling you through COVID-19 with the lockdowns, wearing masks and everything else, right? With the COVID pass, so you can travel, not just, you know, in airplanes, but just outside of your house. Because there's some places around the world and some places in America that if you so much stick your nose out of your door during a lockdown, you better have a good excuse of why you did that. Then they're moving on to food. And again, food is different things. It's not just, you know, controlling the farmers or controlling the grocery stores. It's also controlling the means of transportation between point A and point B, which would be the distribution point and the grocery store where you go buy your goods. And now they want to say that if you want to have government assistance, again, that those two systems that we talked about, one, you have everything for free and you're okay, or the other one where you don't have anything, you're poor and you pretty much live in abandoned houses that probably are falling apart. All right, if you don't take the vaccine. That's what they're telling you. If you want government assistance with your food, with your rent, maybe another stimulus, maybe getting a better job, you know, whatever it is that you want to advance in, you better have your vaccine. And that's what they're making it out to be. So, as I mentioned earlier, if the vaccine is going to be the miracle drug that pretty much saves humanity, why do you have to be pressured into it? Because of the Great Reset. Right? And this is being used through the dark winter. And as you saw in the video, what a dark winter is, it's pretty much that there was a pandemic that broke out, and all of that pretty much broke down the system. And that most of it, we've seen it in the past 10 months. So you must pay attention and better prepare. So I'm going to leave you with that, since this podcast already read over, you know, an hour and 15 minutes. If you stayed all the way to the end, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, because this information is really important. I'm working really hard for you to have this information available to you. All right. And not only that, what to do to prepare for it. Again, I'm going to do a whole podcast all by itself, going through each of these points and exactly what you need to do. All right. So I'm going to leave you with that. I want to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by you through my store, MedmanSurvivalStore.com. And also I want to remind you that I'm giving a book away for free. It's Preppers Secrete Cache. It's actually right there in the front of the store front page. You can click on it, it says order now. It'll take you to the page where you can put in your information. The book is absolutely free, or when you help us with shipping. And, you know, I would really appreciate if you can get different copies so you can give them out. There has been some people who actually order the books, they order more than one, and they're being given them out. So again, if you're listening to this podcast and you've been all the way to the end of this, then I really appreciate it. All right, so with that, again, my name is Jose Prado, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.